Hey everyone! Today we're here with 33 audits, and we're actually we're going to be speaking about a nice topic. It's about private audits and stuff related to how 33 audits is getting his private clients. How does the process look like? What do you do when all developers run away and don't contact you for a few weeks, right? And all different stuff that it might be useful. So, so maybe you can start telling us about the process of getting private audits. Maybe how do you handle it?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I'll do a quick intro as well. My name is 33 Audits. I've been auditing for almost a year now. Started auditing at the beginning of this year. Um, I was a Solidity developer at Consensus Software for about 3 years prior to this. And, my journey in private audits was a bit weird because when I left Consensus, I still had some connections with folks there. And so my first private audit that I ever got was actually through a friend of a friend. Um, and so that was obviously a privilege because a lot of private auditors or a lot of people who are auditing, they don't have those easy connections. But it was also really important for me to establish kind of my like business acumen and my business skills, and I feel like that helped as well for me to get a ton of private audits in the future because it gave me a ton of skills like how to deal with the client, how to like make sure the client is happy, how to address any of the concerns, how to help them manage their risk because they don't really know who I am, right? And so I have to present myself in a way that it actually sells the services that I have, but also sells the skills that I have and legitimizes them, validates them, right? I'm not just some person online that's saying I can do these things that I actually can't do. So that process was really interesting. That was, my first private audit client was earlier this year, maybe in like April. I was able to find one high, one medium. And then from there, things kind of slowed down significantly.
I know
Um,
that feeling.
yeah. Well, and that's when I was like, okay, I need to actually find work in a way that is consistent, that isn't 100% reliant on old connections that I have, and that is reliant on the work that I'm producing now, and also reliant on some type of structure that is repeatable for all the future clients. And that's when I started, maybe in July, I started going crazy in contests. Like I started participating in contests. July alone, I participated in 5 different contests. And I was able to find a ton of vulnerabilities, like 3 highs, I think, maybe like 8 mediums. I made it to the top 100 in Codehawks. I made it to like the top 200 on Code Arena. And I think the thing that I did that was a bit different from a lot of other folks is I turned every single issue, every single thing that I did into a marketing post. So every single bug that I found, every single bug that I didn't find as well, but that I read from the report after the report came out, I turned all of that into threads, all of that into blog posts. I think I have 4 or 5 blog posts right now. Like one's on ERC20 issues, another one is on account abstraction issues, another one's on like layer 0 issues. All of those are basically just bugs that I found, and I took those bugs and turned them into articles. And those
That's
articles, then I
good,
no, go
nice
ahead. Sorry.
approach. Yeah, yeah. I'm actually wondering, what do you think it will get you or anyone more private audits? Participating in more contests or working on your actual brand or
That's
marketing,
a
as you're saying?
that's a great question. So you need to have stuff to market. That's what's extremely important. And that's what happened with me, right? Like I had this first private audit that came through a friend, but and then nothing happened for me. And I was like, well, it makes sense. I have nothing to market. I have no content. I have nothing that I can show to the world. Like, hey, here's proof that I can actually do this task. I can do this thing that I'm selling. I can provide value to you. And so that's why I went very deep in contests for the month of July, August, September. I was just grinding in contests and trying to find as many bugs as I can. And what you notice as well is if you're an auditor right now and you feel I don't know what to write about on Twitter, I don't know what to I don't know how people come up with content. I look at whatever Bytes 32, Pajov, some of these bigger accounts, and they always have stuff to talk about. It's because they're actually auditing. And as you audit, things will just naturally come to you like, oh, I just learned this new thing. I didn't know this before. I should make a Twitter thread and write about this and put it out there. Um, and so turning everything that you find, and I tell people this when they ask me about marketing help, is everything can turn into a Twitter thread, everything can turn into a blog post, everything can turn into marketing material if you just think of it properly. I have conversations with people sometimes when they ask me questions in Discord and I answer their questions and I'm like, oh man, I could actually turn this answer into a whole Twitter thread and
Yeah.
turn it into a post. And I think like a lot of auditors, they maybe don't feel they either don't feel comfortable doing that or they feel caught up, they get too caught up on what should I market, when in reality everything that you're doing every day is marketable. It's just how you kind of spin it, you know. So I think, yeah, if you're in a position where you don't know what to do or you don't have anything to market, grind in contests and you'll have more than enough content to put out there,
Yeah.
you know.
From my side, it was like even from day one I started, I I decided that, well, first of all, I didn't have whom to share with what I was learning. And it was
Sure.
a lot of information and very complex stuff, especially when you're starting, and overwhelming. So I decided, obviously, I didn't have any followers or anything on Twitter. I opened a brand new account and I say I am just going to write about it. I need to learn it, and as I learn it, I will write it. First, it was only on Twitter. Then I started, as you're saying, write posts or blogs about it, and I think it's just what you do every day. It counts because at least you're showing that you have been learning about it or that you're able to write about it. And if you're able to write about it, most likely you understand it, because if you help
Yes.
anyone else to understand, then definitely you kind of, or you should understand it at least to some extent. So yeah, I can totally agree with that. And I am actually wondering, I don't know if it was one of the first times we spoke. I think I asked you, because I was starting with the first private audits I had, and I think I asked you about the quotes. So how do you quote the client? Do you have a system that you decide depending on the lines of code or complexity, or you have a fixed amount, or how do you handle that?
Yeah, so that's a great question because that has changed and it should change, right? The more private audits you get, you should be changing your pitch, you should be changing how your price scoping, you should be changing until it gets to a point to where it's consistent. You want it to be consistent. Obviously, I'm not saying like it should change for every client, but if you're learning and you're just getting private audits, you're just getting private audits, you're going to quote over quote some clients and you're going to under quote some clients, and that's just part of the learning process. But as you do it more and more and more, you'll realize like what your sweet spot is in order to actually quote clients properly, and it'll be a little bit more consistent. What I noticed is the first thing that I try to do is I try to ask what a client's budget is. A client comes to me, hey, how much do you charge? The first question I'll ask them back is, well, what is your budget for security? So I could just get a bit of an idea of what their range is, um, because it's really hard to just quote based on just like a first glance at the code, right? You kind of need to sit with the code. You need to understand the complexity, what interfaces it's using, what other protocols it's interacting with, how complex is the math. A lot of these things go into play. But the first thing I do is obviously source lines of code. You know, I'll run it through Solidity Code Metrics, get the source line of code, so I get an idea how big the code base is. From there, I can more or less tell a little bit like what my baseline amount of hours is going to be. I do everything mostly based hourly. Um, and then based on the complexity of the code, I start to pad it with more hours or even double the amount of hours. And I always add some extra time at the end for report generation, fix reviews, and just you need to pad your time. Like if you think that something's going to take you 30 hours, add 10 hours to it, because there's always those unexpected gotchas, nuances, obstacles that you were not used to that are going to show up. And from there, I'll pad the time a little bit. And I kind of base the hourly on the client's budget. Like I have a range of what I like to make, but if the client's budget is a little bit lower, but I think they're really cool. Like I'm working with a client right now where they're a smaller project, it's only 2 devs, and they did have a bit of a smaller budget, but I really like the project. It's like a subscription based project where you can basically sign up for like subscriptions, monthly subscriptions. And I really thought it was a different innovative project that I haven't seen yet. And they use I don't know if people have heard of like Superfluid, but they use Superfluid that does payment streams, so you could stream payments like micropayments. So I thought it was a really cool use case as well. And so I quoted them a little bit under what I normally quoted, just because I really liked the team and I really wanted to work with them, to continue to work with them. But the process of quoting, the process of price scoping, even with like traditional firms, is so based on, obviously it's based on number of lines of code, complexity, but it's also based on market demand. It's based on what's going on in the market. You know, there's been times this year where the market's been a bit slower, so I've been willing to take a little bit less. There's times like now where things are getting extremely busy, so I'm kind of quoting clients more and they're actually willing to pay more because they understand that the demand is a bit higher, so prices should be higher. uh, but overall, this process of price scoping comes through just trying and failing and trying and failing, and then finding a price, like a pricing formula that really works for you and works for your clients. You want to be able to obviously work for what you think is, you know, is worth your time, but also be able to provide value for your clients for a price that is affordable and reasonable to them. And so yeah, my process is I have it a little solidified now. It's kind of what I described. It's getting the number of lines of code, getting the complexity, asking what the client's budget is, seeing what the project is, seeing if it's also the amount of research that I'll have to do in order to understand this project. You know, is it something that's simple? Like, is it a DeFi project, staking project? I've audited a ton of those before, so I know it's going to be easy for me. Or is it something brand new? You know, they're using like layer zero, omni chain, cross chain swaps, and I'm gonna have to learn all about layer zero. So I'm gonna price that into the quote. Like that's gonna be priced into the quote. And don't undersell yourself. Like I think a lot of auditors are giving these low prices because they really, really want to get work. But I would say that you want to charge an amount that you actually think is going to make you put in the effort to find all the bugs possible and to spend as much time finding the amount of bugs. Like our goal is to find as many bugs as possible, and so you want to be able to be well compensated for that. And as well as, you know, we've seen recently like protocols get hacked because, you know, like $100,000 because of like they were using zero slippage, you
Yeah.
know, like very, very basic things. These clients would, if you position yourself well, you could position in a way of just like, hey, yeah, you're going to pay me $10,000 for this audit, but I'm going to save you 200K in the future. And that's also you have to remember that that is your pitch, right? You're providing, that's the type of value that you're providing.
Yeah,
So I
exactly.
don't know if that fully answered, but like
No, absolutely.
it's a bit flex. Yeah,
It
yeah.
yeah, it answered even to the point that I think I am going to take your advice. And to be fair, I say that because it came back to my mind like when I am in an interview for a new job and they ask you about the salary range. I found a way to never actually say an amount, but to bring back the question to them. And I always have them telling me the range of the salary that they expect to give, and that then I am winning there, right? Because I could give an amount, it could be much more, and then they discard me, or little, and they accept, and I lose, right? So I think
Exactly.
I should be taking that approach also on quoting. So thanks for that. Absolutely, that's so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
first win of the call.
yeah, well, and just to add to that too, I think it also displays to you and to your client how important security is to them. If you ask them what their budget for security is and they tell you zero or they tell you 10,000, you know, then you can take a step back and you're like, okay, these people aren't even thinking about security, or these people take security seriously and they're willing to spend some money in order to get that quality,
Yeah,
whatever review, security review, whatever we want to call it.
that's cool. So you mentioned lately you're getting more frequently clients. So are you handling all of those on your own, or you're collaborating with anyone, or how do you handle that big amount of work?
Yeah, it depends. I have a couple clients. I have two clients right now that are on retainer. Those are kind of my core clients. Most of those I'm doing solo. Um, any client that is having me do development, I'll do development for them, but I'll always get another auditor to come in and take a look at it because you need to. You obviously have a bias for your own code, so it's not safe to audit your own code. That's at least my belief. So for situations like that, I'll bring in another auditor, either somebody that I've worked with in the past, or I'm working also with OpenSense, and we're basically building out essentially like what is like a firm that will sit under OpenSense, and it's uh, basically like a catalog of auditors that we have of people that Misanthropic has either worked with before or he's interviewed, and they all have different skill sets, all have different specialties. And anytime that either I get overloaded or any clients that come directly to OpenSense as well, we've been kind of like building teams for these clients based on their needs. So that's been really cool. And we have a couple announcements coming out next year to kind of explain that a little bit more. But that was one of the recent audits that we did, which was for a liquid staking derivative, was a team that was put together by me and Misanthropic. He uh, he brought in two senior researchers, and I brought in two junior researchers, and we kind of built a team. And this has been a way for us to be able to have a lot of flexibility around hiring. Also, there's some clients, whether it be complexity or the size of the code, that just needs more auditors. Like one person can't do it by themselves, and so it's a way that we can easily pull people for specific engagements or specific lengths of time without them needing to like work for the auditing firm or be full time working for us. Right? It's almost like a catalog of independent auditors that we can reach out to and bring in. So that is part of what I'm doing. And then me as well. I just have two or three go-to people who I can trust, who I've worked with before, that when I'm like, hey, I need some extra help this week, I can just kind of call on them. And I think that's going to become big in the next like year as we see the market grow, because one thing that I realized very early is my time isn't scalable. I have at most 80 hours a week that I can dedicate to auditing. And I don't know, maybe that could be one audit a week, two audits a week. And there's going to be more clients than there is time that I have a week. And so what I can do is I can guarantee that these clients can get the work that they need at quality that they need, while also like scaling the business, right? And so I can bring in an auditor and I can get them work, and I'll take 20% for being the one that handled the business deal or recommended them to uh, these auditors. And I'll also do kind of like a review of that person's work, like quality control in the work, right? To make sure that it's up to par and it doesn't, tarnish my brand or my name as well, because I'm co-signing on that. So that's been very popular, is kind of co-signing other auditors and saying like, hey, I don't have the time to do it this week, but I've worked with this person. They're amazing. I'm going to hand you off to them. And I'll also like double check the work that they did to make sure it's up to quality with work that I would do anyway. So that's becoming more and more popular as we go into what I believe is a bull run. Other people are skeptical of what I believe is a bull run.
Yeah, I think it's a solid approach, because at some point, yeah, I also thought about it. Like also maybe some projects or some clients might have some simple project, and also you can give opportunity to some more junior auditor that could benefit from the experience, and at the same time you focus on other of the million things you have to do. And yeah, that's cool. So maybe you can tell us how do you handle more or less from beginning to end. I mean, I don't want to focus that much on approach, or if you analyze it or so on, but I'm wondering if you're more going through entry points of the project, or if you actually, something else I wanted to ask is about how much testing do you do? Like, how do you focus more or less your audits? What do you like? What's your go-to approach?
So like coming into an audit on my own, like let's say I'm auditor.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, it's kind of like a mixed bag of things. Like when I start a new audit, obviously it's the things that everyone says, right? You want to understand documentation, you want to understand, you want to read through the documentation, understand at a high level what the system's trying to do, or what it's intended to do, and get a very high level idea of how all the different parts work together, how all the different parts connect, and then also you start coming up with interesting ways that you could potentially break it. At that point, I'll probably start to look into the code, and I do a few different things when I look into the code. Because I come from Solidity developer background, it's kind of easy to, not easy, but I can kind of look at code and get an idea for this person's development style. And you can also get an idea of like, does this person take security seriously? Do they take like gas optimization seriously? Just through like a quick glance at the
yeah,
code, you can start to analyze. Uh, and then I sit with the code and I maybe study it for a day or two. And I genuinely believe on taking space, like going outside for the walk, going whatever for a swim, going to do something and taking some space from the code. And that's when you start to come up with some of the more unique, innovative ways to break things. And it, outside of those easy to spot bugs that you just see during your first couple of days of looking at the code, you start to think of more of the creative bugs and more of the bugs that are unique to the code base and to the implementation. From there, I found that actually writing my report throughout the process is really, really helpful. Um, because when you write the report, you have to create proof of concepts. As you create those proof of concepts, you obviously have to deal with the tests. And as you start digging into tests, you start finding other things and you
yeah.
start to uncover.
What testing approaches do you use? Are you based on Foundry with fuzzing, invariant tests, or because I asking because lately I'm learning a lot about testing different. I mean the thousand approaches, different techniques that there are. And I'm curious if you make a lot of use of them, or you find issues in a different way.
Yeah, so I myself don't I'm still like uh getting better like writing fuzz tests and variant tests and all this. But I do think one approach that helped, like one of the projects that I'm working on now is, all their tests are written in hard hat. I think a great approach is rewrite those tests in Foundry and also write your own tests for things that may not have been tested. Like they had maybe 67% test coverage. So as I started testing some of the functions that were untested, I started to find issues. Also, testing for, I noticed a lot of devs don't test for unhappy paths. So they don't test that things should revert when they're supposed to revert. They don't test that, whatever a function that you're only supposed to be able to call once, you're not able to call more than multiple times. Um, and so when you start doing that as well, you start to uncover a bunch of different bugs or a bunch of different gotchas, things that you didn't expect to happen. And so I believe that even if you don't want to rewrite the tests or write your own fuzz tests, uh, it's super helpful to look through the tests to try to just like, I don't know, write tests for unhappy paths, like I was saying, or try different, try to make certain functions revert, because you just start to uncover so much about the code and you also understand what the devs were trying to do versus what the code actually does. Like the testers are extremely important as an auditor because it shows you so much about what the code actually does. Um, so
Yeah,
those are a few different paths. There's now like tons of tools, obviously, that you can use outside of fuzz testings. There's one called Naria AI, an audit wizard as well, that'll kind of write kind of write tests for you in a case. Yeah, they have like give you a few test cases already to start with. And those are really helpful too because they have visualizations where you can kind of follow using like a flow chart what is the functions are intended to do.
Yeah, I think in 3 days, if I'm not mistaken, as of today, 12th of December, there is a new thing coming from the guys, and actually, I'm going to speak about that on my YouTube channel. So yeah,
Nice.
so yeah,
Yeah, so this is perfect. I promise this wasn't a paid shill. It's just something that I've seen before. I've used Narya, Narya .ai. It's very similar to what Audit Wizard is building.
okay.
You kind of put your code base in there and they give you very simple basic test cases for you to start from and then build from those. But they have like visualizations as well. um so this function is
Hmm.
calling this function on this other contract, blah blah blah, and it's very useful for you to get high level overview. And that's another thing too with more complex code bases. I think I do this more in contests than I do in private audits, but diagrams have been super helpful to my understanding, like drawing them out. um I use I don't know how to pronounce it, Excalia draw or
It's
something like that.
Draw. Yeah,
Excalia draw, yeah. And I have an iPad with the Apple Pencil, so it's very easy to kind of like draw things out. So I usually have my iPad on one side, code base on the other. And with Foundry, if you use like verbose mode, you can actually see which functions are being called when you kind of the execution
yeah,
flow. So I'll try to draw out that execution flow also in a diagram. And once you put things in diagram, you start to see weird situations where you can exploit or take advantage of certain scenarios. So that's also very helpful.
nice. Yeah, I bought some time ago a whiteboard actually, but then I discovered
Nice.
Draw, and I think it's less work with Draw, and it's still nice.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Less mess for sure.
exactly. And leaving a bit the process aside, so I'm also interested to know how do you handle the client's expectations? And I gave you an example because, for instance, in one of the private audits I made, the client came back to me and say, "Hey, but you didn't say anything about this part of the code, about this function. You didn't tell me if there is a bug here or not." And they had other requests or something, but I say like, I mean, depend. It's interesting what's their understanding. So how do you handle their expectations? What's the collaboration you have with them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think in any business relationship, setting the proper expectations up front is extremely important. And I also think under promising and over delivering is extremely important as well with any client. So what I mean about that is if you think something is going to take you 40 hours, tell the client that it's going to take you, and maybe not in this exact scenario because if you're getting paid hourly, it'll obviously make a difference. But if you think you get something done in 2 days, tell the client that it's going to take you 3 days. And if you get it done quicker, great, they're going to be super happy because you got
Yeah,
it done quicker than you thought. But if not, you gave yourself that extra room, right? And what I do with a lot of my clients, I'm like, hey, I'm here to help you, but I'm not going to find all the bugs. If you want to actually have like proper security, you need to get multiple audits by multiple different auditors and potentially multiple different styles as well. So I make it very, very clear that I'm going to do my best to find as many bugs as possible. But as we've seen with Kyber Swap, as we've seen with multiple different protocols, you could get as many audits as you can. You could have a really good bug bounty program, 200K, $1 million, highest max bounty. You could even have paid out a ton of bounties and there still could exist a bug in your code, right? And I think Patrick Collins recently tweeted about this. He was like, no matter how many audits you get, there's always going to exist a bug. So having an incident response plan is also extremely important. And so you could also set that up with your clients. You could let them know, hey, in case there is a bug, here's what we're going to do, in order to try to decrease the amount of risk that or decrease the amount of loss. So I think and this just goes back to just good business practice anyway. You just setting expectations up front with your clients is extremely important. Not leaving them waiting, not leaving them guessing. Like having that excellent customer service will cause less issues for you even when something does come up, even when a client's like, hey, you didn't look at this function or you didn't tell me about this function. At least you set the expectations up front. Like, well, in 40 hours, like that's what we agreed on. That time is limited. I can only get to so much of the code. If you want me to, have like 100% certainty that I covered every function, then I need 80 hours
Yeah.
or I need 100
Mhm.
hours,
The thing is that the question was more of like in general in the report we add the issues, right? Like we add if something is wrong, then we mention it. So when I analyzed that, when I reviewed that function, I think it was okay. It was fine. At least I didn't find any issue. And they
Mm,
asked me, why didn't you add anything about it? So maybe their expectation was, I want to know that this part it's correct, that there is no bug there. So
got you.
yeah, it's
Got
like
you.
maybe they should also. It's not like they didn't give much documentation, to be fair, but uh, but yeah. So I think the expectations, the actually the invariants are very necessary for it to order. There is also I think in some contests I've seen that the protocols add their potential risks, I think they call it, or something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah, yeah.
So you can look into that as their fears or their insecurities of their code, and then you need to analyze it and try to break it. So then, yes, then that's their expectation. They want you to check that. So yeah. And how about like I think you mentioned some time ago how to deal with the unexpected curveballs, like with devs disappearing for conferences or things like that.
Yeah.
How do you handle delays?
Yeah. Delays are so delays happen on both ends, I think. I think being clear as when they happen on your end and you are the auditor, you want to be extremely clear why they happened. And you also want to reassure your customer that in the future, like you're going to use this as an opportunity to in the future be a little bit clearer or try to, give a more accurate timeline on how long something would take. And when the opposite happens, sometimes the devs disappear or devs get busy. Um, for me, throughout that experience, when it happened recently on an audit, I just had to be really clear with my auditors. I had to be really clear. They were kind of like, "Hey, what's going on? We haven't heard from the client. Like, when's the second half of the payment going to come?" And I just had to be really clear on what was going on, be fully transparent. And I think consistent updates, it comes back to really good business acumen, right? It's kind of like when your plane is delayed, you're sitting on the plane and you have no idea how long you're going to take off. You're like, I don't know if I'm going to take off in an hour or take off in 20 minutes. And then when the captain comes on and says, "Hey, we're something wrong in the engine. We're working on it. I'll give you an update as soon as I can." And then the pilot comes back again in 20 minutes. Is like, "Hey, we're almost done. It's going to be another 20 minutes and then we'll take off." Those updates actually make the people on the plane feel a lot calmer, feel a lot more engaged. They feel like they know what's going on. Granted, it's not going to make the situation better, but it'll make everybody feel like they actually know what's going on. So I think communication is super important
More
when
transparent, no?
more transparency and have as much transparency. And you don't have to lie. You could just be clear. You could be like, "Hey, client, ended up whatever having an issue at home. They're off this week, and so we're just waiting for them to get back." Like that transparency, and people just want to know what's going on a lot of times, and you'll notice that people tend to be a lot more calm and okay when they know what's going on versus when they're just like, "I have no idea what's going on when I'm going to hear back." So I think a lot of that is just part of properly managing people's expectations and keeping people updated on what the situation is, both on the client side and the other side. Like if you're delayed on something, on turning something in, I always side with honesty. I'm like, just be as honest with you can with the client. Like, hey, this took way longer than we expected, but I'm pretty sure I could have it back to you within the next 24 hours. Which is a little later than what we expected, but that's what we're dealing with now. Um,
Yeah, I
yeah,
guess it's definitely helpful. And changing a bit the topic. So, how do you see the future of auditing? Like, to be more specific, is it going to be more common in the future, more huge firms auditing, or it is going rather more for private audits? Like, what do you think about it?
yeah. I think this debate has been going on for a while now. Um, I think traditional firms hold their place, right? They've built some of the tools that we use today. They obviously laid the foundation for us. Um, but I do think that independent auditors are going to be the future, and the market is going to, like, demand for them is going to grow as we get better at marketing, as we get better at branding, and as we get better at teaming up. I do see teams of independent auditors being huge over the next, few years. I think that people would prefer to work independently. First off, you can, if you market yourself well, and if you like are good at what you do, you can make more money than you would at a firm. And we've kind of talked about this, but you go to a firm to get an audit, they charge you, in a bull run. I know of traditional firms that were charging between 30 to 40K per auditor per week. They charge you 30, 40K per auditor per week. Takes them 3 weeks to do your engagement, and they staff you with a junior auditor and a senior auditor. So you really have like one person that's really has a lot of experience looking at your code, and another person who kind of has experience but is learning on the gig. And you're paying the same price for both of them, right? You're paying the same amount for the junior auditor that you are for the senior auditor. So you're paying 80K a week, let's say in this example. Whereas you can just go to Code Arena and get some of the best auditors out of the top 100. Majority of them are senior auditors. You know exactly who's auditing your code. You know exactly what they specialize in. You know exactly how many bugs they found previously. If you're a lending protocol, you can go to any lending protocol that has done a contest on Code Arena and get all the top auditors from all the lending protocols, and you know that they specialize in lending, like they're good in lending. And you contact them, you get them to come audit your protocol. It usually ends up being cheaper, and it's more specific, more specialized. And on top of that, like I said, you don't have a junior person and a senior person. You can get 3 senior people for less than what you would at a firm getting a junior and a senior. The problem with that is I think companies don't, like, projects don't know this yet. You know, this whole idea of independent researcher is still fairly new. It's only been like this year and a little bit of last year that this has been kind of growing and developing, and the market's been growing for this. And so we ourselves need to get better, like branding, marketing, and selling our product, which is, or our services, which is auditing. And I think you're starting to see a lot more posts about this. Obviously Pajov Bytes 32, they've done a great job. Like Milo Truck has just put out a really good blog post as well on
Yeah, I
on a
read
lot
it.
of these things that we're, and I think like that post alone is going to help bring in a ton of new auditors next year. And but at least now they have better framework of like how to kind of build themselves up, you know. And so yeah, I
Yeah,
think independent auditors are the future, but I still think we got a little bit of work to do on the marketing and
yeah, it
branding
feels
side
like
of
it's been
things.
here, no, maybe not forever, but for very long. But to be fair, but I don't want to say a year because probably more than there were before. Obviously, it's just that way less people. But yeah, I think in this 2023, it's been getting more popular, I guess, unless I'm mistaken. But I think so, yeah. And yeah, especially people like Pashov, right? That he started.
Yeah,
I think at the beginning of the year, I still remember his tweets of him saying that he's reviewing every single report from Trust, I think it
yeah,
was.
yeah,
And what, a few months after, he's telling how much money he's going to invest in buying stuff. And yeah, anyways.
Yeah, yeah.
He's a very
No,
nice.
and that's a good point. Like there was trust that came before, you know, and I think trust did a great job of like setting up a like a private auditing business, right? They have trust security, which is kind of like work kind of like a spirit bit, and obviously we have spirit bit, but I think Pajov also kind of pushed a lot of this forward for us because he kind of gave us a roadmap, as well as C. Michael, right? C. Michael also gave us like a roadmap of like how to do it. Like this is how I did it, and this is how
Mhm.
you could do it. And now there's tons of other private auditors, just like GoGo, you know, and Bytes, and they're also giving us like their roadmap.
And
And
you
from
are.
there, you'll just yeah, exactly, me as well, giving us the roadmap, and then from there, you'll start to see, I think, solidify a bit more. I'm really bullish on independent auditors, but I do think like this conversation that we're having as well of like there is a piece missing. Like, how do I market myself? How do I make it known to these projects? Um, but you know, the opposite is also true. In the bull run. Some of these traditional firms were charging like what I was saying, 30, 40K per auditor per week, and they had a backlog of 6 months worth of audit. You know, they were booked out for the next 6 months, and projects are going to want to release. They're going to want to come out as quick as possible, and they know they need that audit. And when they're going to go to a traditional firm's going to be like, I can't get you for another 6 months. So they're going to be like, well, what's next?
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
fair.
independent.
So,
Mm.
how do you think we can bring more awareness of security to those new protocols, new projects, all those developers?
Yeah, I mean, I think the marketing is key, right? I think there's so many people in the top 100 who are amazing auditors. And when I say top 100, I mean on the leaderboard in Code Arena, who are amazing auditors. And a lot of people don't know they exist. A lot of people don't know that they can find bugs. A lot of people don't know that what these people specialize in. A lot of people don't know their past history. So it's really what I was telling you at the beginning of the conversation is like every bug you find should, in my opinion, but could turn into a tweet, a Twitter thread, could turn into a blog post, could turn into a video. And that content is extremely important. You know, I think Cypherin's doing a great job of that. Like they've moved to education, right? And they're using education as a way to market their auditing firm.
Yeah, but something I'm thinking about, how how many of those people that read our tweets are actually developers and not auditors? Like, what's the reach of our sharings actually? Because yeah, that's a way of giving awareness, right, to the people. But is it our community on Twitter mainly auditors that are trying to get better, or are those well, let's say Solidity Rust developers actually also in our community, and they are getting absorbing this knowledge? What do you think about it? Do you think it's common to that it's a mix, or it's more auditors and not many developers that are actually
So
are
what do you mean?
reading what we post?
Got you. Yeah. So you're saying like who's actually so yeah. I had a recent tweet about this, and I think there's a lot of auditors that also need to work on their target audience. So they post things and they kind of post it for other auditors to read. They make blog posts, they make content, they just post Twitter threads. And really, whether it be you're trying to get more private audits or you're just trying to bring awareness around auditing in general, security in general, like smart contract security in general, your target audience should actually be developers, CEOs, CTOs, projects themselves, right? And so if your post is super deep in the technical about security and you're talking about like fuzz testing and you're talking about, you know, how you found all these bugs to I don't know, all these different methods that you chose, while that's great for other auditors and we really love that and we absorb that, if your goal is to try to get more clients, if your goal is just try to spread more security knowledge, you almost have to change, you know, you kind of change the story that you're telling, the narrative that you're telling to cater to the people that you're trying to target. And I think a lot of us as auditors, we're just kind of bad at that. We put things on Twitter and
It's true.
It's mostly for other auditors,
I think so.
but yeah, like a CEO is going to look at that and be like, I have no idea what this says, and just keep scrolling through Twitter, you know? So I think it's, and there's a lot of big, if you abstract even more what we're doing, like a lot of us aren't auditors who tweet, you know, well, we're auditors who tweet, but the way that I abstracted myself, I'm like, I'm actually a Twitter marketer. Like that's what I do. And the service that I'm selling is auditing versus being like, I'm an auditor who tweets. And so if I start to study Twitter marketing, if I start to study, you know, how like the fitness bro sells fitness on Twitter and how like, you know, the whatever, like the yoga teacher, you know, uses Twitter to find her clients, there's things that all these people understand that I could actually use in order for me to better find clients, in order for me to better spread my knowledge, and in order for me to reach a wider audience that isn't just for auditors, because we can kind of get stuck in our echo chamber of just like auditor, 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 and we're actually never leaving our niche. Like we're
That's what I
stuck
was
within our
afraid of.
niche.
Yeah, actually, that's yeah. Do you follow NFT God, by the way?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, yeah,
Because he's
yeah,
all the time sharing about actually how to grow your reach. Actually, and I must say,
yeah,
I have applied, especially the way I write my tweets, and some of the things that related to the algorithm, Twitter algorithm, and I think he's right in many things. So
yeah.
because it worked, I say he's right because I have tried
Exactly.
this way and the way he says it, and it's he's not paying for naming his name. I don't think he's going
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah, yeah.
hear this, but it's
No,
actually useful.
and he's like, I mean, people have certain opinions about him, controversial, but I
Yeah,
do agree with you. Like, there's certain marketing specific to marketing stuff that he has shared that is like is very very alpha. I think another one is J.K. Molina. He's a little douchey, whatever. People have certain opinions of him, but if you abstract from the personal, your opinion of what you think about this person, and actually listen to what they're saying when it comes to marketing, like
yeah,
they actually know what they're talking about, and that's why they've been able to grow these. Like if you think the biggest account in our space probably has like 25,000 followers, right? And
or less, but yeah,
but that's crypto in general. Like, you know, there's crypto traders who have hundreds of thousands of followers, you know? And so if we abstract a little bit more and we zoom out a little bit more, we can target audiences that are outside of just the super technical auditors. And those are actually the people that need our services. Those are the people who are launching protocols without getting audits. Those are the people that actually need help with their projects, and they don't even really know we exist because we're targeting a lot of our content to people that are just like us. And I've said this, so like, hey, if you want to make friends and become popular in the auditing space, then keep targeting auditors. But if your goal is to grow your business, if your goal is to make more money, then you need to think about who your target audience is and how you're targeting them. Like I did a post I think a couple months ago just to try something different. I did like an analysis on this DeFi protocol that I myself was invested in, and I would look through all of their previous audits and spotted anything that I thought was like worthy of talking about. But I also did it in a way in a similar way where like these DeFi researchers would, you know. And so it was a bit of a technical post, but it was also it could cater to anybody who's just investing in DeFi. And that was an attempt to just do something different, but that's kind of what I'm talking about is like try to target an audience and look at other people too, right? Like look at maybe DeFi researchers who are doing Twitter threads about products that they're using and see how they're creating their tweets, and then do one that's similar thing but from a security perspective, you know.
yeah. I mean, it makes a big difference to be fair, and yeah, I mean, I try to apply it all the time. So it's also I'm sometimes a bit confused with the sharing external links like YouTube links or the Medium ones. That's why usually when I post a new video, I usually don't add the YouTube link because I heard that it's not too good for the algorithm or for reach. That's why
Yeah.
I added. I say like my link is in the or the link to my YouTube channel is in my profile. That way, two things happen. First, it's that I don't add an external link, so that helps. Second, interested people will go to my profile, and that's
Yeah,
engagement. So that counts, and they are interested in my profile. Then they may either enter on my YouTube channel or stay in my profile. And a second thing, or a third thing, it's also that tweet usually it's long form tweet, so they first need
yeah,
to extend it. So that way you get people interacting with the tweet, and that's what counts.
exactly.
So yeah, and that I got that information from studying other accounts, as you're saying, from following different people. And it's not only about learning auditing and solidity and so on. Actually, this is what I wanted to ask about, but we're already speaking about it, like how to build your brand, like how to put your name out there. And it's not only about saying, okay, yes, I need to be the best, or study reports or whatever. It's just you need to figure out also how to write, actually how to write, especially
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
I don't know, any we're already speaking about it, but any advice to build your brand, for people to build their
Yeah.
brand?
It's 100% like all this stuff that we're talking about. I think first, obviously, is having a consistent brand across all platforms, like Discord, everything. Name should be the same, picture should be the same, right? There's a idea on Twitter about conversions, like how many people went to your profile and how many people actually followed you, right? And you can get analytics on all this, like how many people visited your profile. Reason people are probably not like converting to followers is because there's a mismatch between your bio and your picture and your pinned tweet and then your first like most recent tweets. And so it's things that you don't think about, but all of that matters, right? Because it's the same thing that you do when you go to somebody else's page. Like if you tweet something that goes viral and I go to your page, I'm going to read your bio, see what your page is about, look at your picture, and then probably read your pinned tweet. And within 5 seconds, I'm going to decide whether I want to follow you or not. It's very, very quick.
The bio
And so
is a important thing.
it's huge. And all of this stuff that I'm talking about, I I didn't just learn on my own. Like I just went on YouTube and searched Twitter marketing. And obviously there's very clickbait YouTube videos like make 30K a month as a Twitter marketer. But move past the clickbaitness and actually study these videos and watch these videos and do research on this, and you'll learn so much alpha. You'll learn so much about how to set up your Twitter in a way to where you'll get conversions. Like I told JK Molina, he has a whole step-by-step guide on how to turn a lead into how to close a lead, how to get somebody in your Twitter DMs like, hey, curious about your services, to actually getting them to send you money online. And he has like this entire guide that he wrote of how to get from there. And it's not just him. There you can find all of this online, but there's tons of this alpha out there. And it's what I was saying before is we need to step outside of ourselves and realize that again, and this is just if your goal is to build a business and make money, but that's my goal. Like I realize I am a Twitter marketer and what I am selling is auditing services and development services. I am not an auditor or developer tweeting about my developer experience or an auditing experience. Those are two completely different things. And so if I study Twitter marketing, I can get better at selling my service the same way if the service that I was selling, the example that I used earlier, was fitness coaching. Doesn't matter. Like I'm still using social media to sell this service, and that process is going to be the same. And so I think just studying this, and like I give people these tips all the time, like go online, go on YouTube. I don't know if they really follow them though, because it's all there. All the information is there and it's all free.
Yeah, I mean, besides Twitter, I'm obviously, as this video, I'm on YouTube, and you can't imagine how many, well, hours I have spent on those videos that are recommending how to get more viewers, how to get more
Yeah.
engagement, how to retain the viewer, how to improve your thumbnail, how to make a
Exactly.
clickbait like not only thumbnail but title. I mean the amount of work, Jesus Christ. Yeah, it is very important. It is a fact. I mean, if you just add, I mean, I know because obviously in the first videos I didn't have as many subscribers as now, but well, it makes a difference. I think from also obviously the way the content is built, but there is a
Yeah,
moment where I actually had a little break, I think in summer, and then during that time I was watching a lot, well, at least a few of those videos. And when I went back to the next video, I already was using some of those techniques of title, thumbnail, and the first few seconds of the video count a lot. Like those first 30 seconds are incredibly important. But yeah, the
for
same
sure.
in on Twitter. It's like the hook. You need a hook there. It doesn't matter what it is about. If it's about auditing, you can start with something that catches the attention. And it will catch the attention of an auditor. It will catch the attention of someone looking for auditors. It will catch the attention for anyone that is interested about the topic, or even the right word so that someone using the search on Twitter, which maybe is not the most used, or maybe it's, yeah, I'm just assuming that, but I think it's not, or at least I don't use it much. But if you use the right words, then it can appear for anyone interested. So
Yeah. And I also like that's such a good point. I encourage people to do experiments with their own tweets, right? Like I did an experiment where I tweeted something and I was like, I don't know, I think it was like about count abstraction. It was like count abstraction da 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 will lead to this bug. Probably like I don't know, 2,000 engagements, views, whatever you want to call them. And then I put another one. Are you a brand new smart contract auditor that wants to learn about the newest trend coming out? Well, let's talk about it.
the flow,
10x what the other one did. 10x what the other one did. And it's the content was the same thing. And
yeah,
it just goes to show that it's not really even about the content. The content matters for sure, but it plays a smaller part than the way you're marketing it, your hook, all these things that you're saying, like how you're bringing in the readers, how you're keeping people engaged, you're telling a story every time you market yourself. And so like the same way you don't start a book like in the middle of the deep technical content, you're going to get readers engaged, and chapter 1's going to be an intro and you're bringing them in and getting them used to it, and then you give them the deep stuff. It's similar here, just obviously more condensed, you know. And one thing that you said about the videos that I think is just true for all social media content, it doesn't matter if it's like Instagram, Twitter, like Mr. Beast has this like really good kind of quote, and he's like, oh, if you put out 100 videos on YouTube and you prove to me that you put in out those 100 videos, I'll answer any question that you want after that about making YouTube videos. And then what he says after, he's like, only 2% of people who actually put out 100 videos have questions to ask me. He's like, the other 98% already answered all the questions that they have by putting out those 100 videos. And so you have to try, like you have to write articles, you have to put out videos, you have to tweet, because the more you do it, the more you see what sticks, the more you see what doesn't work. And it's just the same way we do shadow audits to get a feedback loop. Like marketing is
yep,
the same thing. You create that quick feedback loop. This worked, this didn't work. This worked, this didn't work. This led to a client, this didn't. And just do the things that work. But you have to try. Trying is like the most important thing.
absolutely. Sometimes you will, well, not be able to sleep, but you will. We're like, what the? This tweet or this blog for me was a game changer. This was
Yeah.
what did go wrong? Can't believe it. It's very good. It is very good content. Why it didn't reach, or why people don't preach it, or I don't know. But yeah,
And it's
then something that you, I don't know, or that I don't know if the time exactly also matters. I'm a bit paranoid with the time I post either on Twitter or YouTube. But yeah, I don't know. There are a lot of things. But anyways, yeah, and I am curious about something because you mentioned to me offline, let's say, that that you recently have been hired by a protocol. Can you tell us more about this? How did it happen?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So maybe about a month ago, I was just like looking through some contracts, like specifically, I think it was after like the banana gun Telegram bot got exploited, and I was looking at other bot projects, and I found a bot project, and I found some interesting stuff in their contract that I thought looked a little just a little off. And so I reached out to them and started to discuss, the issue that I found, or what I believe to be an issue, and like created a proof of concept for it. Lo and behold, it ended up actually not being a exploitable bug. Um, and so, there was like no bounty that was paid out, even though they had a bounty rewards program. But it actually led to me being hired by them. They were like, "Hey, we like your thinking. We like the way that you like approach this. We liked your write up, um, and we would love to kind of bring you on to build out our future contracts, because we want somebody who thinks the way that you do and has the skills that you do." So it led to basically like not fully monthly, but like a more consistent contracting part-time based engagement with them, and they brought me on as their lead Solidity dev and architect to build out their new contracts. And I think it's just a really good example of providing value before you even get hired. So going to different contracts that you see, seeing how maybe you can optimize them, seeing better ways that you would architect them and design them, writing all that up, and going into the Discord and Twitter and being like, "Hey, I saw your contracts. I think if you did it the way, it would save you gas, or you did it this way, it could avoid bugs." And a lot of those situations may or may not, but in many cases they can lead to work for you. Or if those teams in the future are looking to build out something, they now know, okay, there's this person that's an expert. They looked at my contracts, they know what my contracts look like, and I know that they can provide value. I know a lot of people just kind of hop in like telegrams and discords like, "Hey, hire me, I'm an auditor." But it's a way better pitch if you actually find a way that you could provide value to a project, and then say, "Here's something that I found that I thought would be of interest to you. um, Hire me as an auditor." So I think for people who are, and I won't say this always works, but just kind of looking for ways that you could provide value to people, instead of just, pinging them like, "Hire me," or I get this a lot in my DMs too. People are like, "Teach me smart contract auditing." And I think it would be a lot cooler if someone's like, "Hey man, like I saw you didn't have," and this is just a random example because I'm working on a website right now, but "I saw you didn't have a website, and I built this quick website for you in React. Like, you can use it. Here's the code. And if you're ever looking for a mentee, I'm down to work with you." Like, I would on site
I
bring
wish
that
someone
person.
would suggest to help me with my website because I have it there and I have many things I keep collecting to update and so on. I wish someone would help me to improve it. Yeah, that would be
Dude,
much helpful than just, hey, ask me or help me to become an auditor. Like get all
and
the
if
time.
exactly, if I wanted to work with you, like I would look through I would look through all of your articles, and I would write 3 Twitter threads based on all your articles. Be like, "I wrote these 3 Twitter threads based on all your articles. Like, would you like to use them?" Or I would go to your website and be like, "Hey, I made some design updates to your website. Saw that it's open source, made some design updates. Here's a PR. By the way, if you're ever looking for somebody to bring on
Yeah.
to your team, I'm available." Way better than, "Sir, please teach me auditing."
Yeah, my website is open source. You can create a PR and improve it much more. So yeah.
Right. And so it's just a matter if you scale out, it's a way of it's just, again, back to marketing. It's a way to market to yourself to say, "I can provide value to you. Here's me showing." And now that you become unforgettable to that person, I promise that person is not going to forget you next time they need that thing that you just
Yeah.
did for them.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, I've had a similar situation with Chirac. I mean, it's not like he was trying to learn or did that for the guy from Web3 Sec News. He when I was building the website. I think he reached out to say he could help me if I need any, and ever since we're actually meeting kind of regularly, and same way as he helped me, then obviously I was extremely grateful. So we have been in contact, and anytime I could help in any way, I obviously was very happy to. So yeah, it's about, well, helping without actually wanting anything in return, but that
Exactly.
help, it actually brings, well, it brings you more opportunities, because I mean, not always, right, but it can. So yeah, it's about trying, I mean, in a way it's also what we do by sharing knowledge for auditors, because you are
Yeah.
sharing, trying to help others and not expecting anything, right? But if someone can support you, not with money, but I mean with viewing your videos or reading your articles or sharing your tweets or something, then it's obviously extremely, well, I'm grateful for that. So yeah. Anyways, yeah, I think it has been super and interesting talk. So thank you a lot for sharing, well, your journey, to for sharing all your, well, knowledge about private audits and what you have done so far. So thanks a lot, because it's also helped me, and I am going to take into account some of those advices that you shared. So yeah, nice for having
Yeah,
you.
thanks, man. This has been great, and like I totally appreciate your content. Like I think we need way more video, audio content in the space. So it's cool that you and a few others are like really, really taking charge of that and like kicking ass. And sorry, I don't know if I could curse, but you're doing a great job, in that space. Yeah, yeah,
That's cool. Yeah,
yeah,
I'll try little by little with the time I have.
yeah.
But yeah, okay. So thanks a lot, and thanks everyone for watching. Bye.
Thanks, y'all.